There are two main kinds of 457 plans. There are governmental 457 plans, and there are non-governmental 457 plans. The best kind are actually the governmental ones. That's not necessarily the case with everything in life. The government doesn't necessarily do everything better than, private industry. But in this case, a governmental 457 is way better. And the reason why is you get not only some additional protections typically, the employer is much less likely to go under, because remember, 457 money is deferred compensation. It's money that you've earned, but hasn't yet been paid to you, but it's subject to your employer's creditors. And so if your, employer is a state, they're unlikely to go under, right? If your employer is the federal government, they're unlikely to go under. But the main reason why these governmental 457 plans are better is that when you leave the employer, you can just roll it into an IRA or another 401k or whatever, right? You can do a Roth conversion and put it in a Roth IRA. You have all these great distribution options. When it's a non-governmental 457 plan, not only do you have to make sure the employer is financially stable, and you have to make sure the investments are reasonable and the fees aren't too much, but you need to make sure the distribution options are acceptable to you, because some plans are like the way this doc's plan was, where you got to take all the money out in the year you leave. That's a terrible option, especially if you're leaving at mid-career, right? You decide to separate from this employer, you're 45 or you're 50 or whatever, and now all of a sudden you've got an extra $800,000 in taxable income, that most of which is going to be taxed at 37%. That's no bueno. So check on those options. Make sure they're acceptable to you. Okay, sometimes they can be taken out over 5 years or 10 years or 15 years, or you can annuitize it, but you just want to know what the options are. And every 457 plan is different, so you need to look into that and make sure there's an acceptable option there for you in the plan. And if there isn't, one thing you can do, obviously, is get on the retirement committee and lobby for some changes. But in general, people who have 457 plans also have a 403B plan. And they have totally separate contribution limits. The typical contribution limit for a 457B plan is the same as the employee contribution for a 403B or a 401k if you're under 50. So for 2023, that's $22,500. By the time you're listening to this, it's going to be 2024. I can't even remember what it's going to be in 2024. We'll pull it up here. So 2024 is projected to be $23,000. So it's going up from $22,500 to $23,000. There are also catch-up contributions for 457 plans. They work a little bit differently than the catch-ups in 401ks and even 403bs. And so it's important that you understand how those work too. You've got to read the plan document, again, because everything can be a little bit different. But the IRS allows a governmental 457B plan to do the same, 50 plus catch-up, $7,500 catch-up contribution, exactly like 401ks and 403bs. But it allows governmental and non-governmental 457 plans to have special catch-up contributions in the last 3 years before retirement age, where you can either double your contributions, right? So for 2024, that'd be $46,000, or make up for any years that you didn't put in the maximum contribution. But it's whichever of those two is less. So kind of a complicated catch-up contribution thing that happens with 457. So read that plan document, understand how it works. If you qualify for those catch-up contributions, you may want to take advantage of that. 457s can also have Roth options, right? Same decision you have to make with 401k or 403b as to whether you do tax-deferred contributions or tax-free Roth contributions. The general rule, of course, is during your peak earnings years, you want to do tax-deferred contributions. And in anything other than a peak earnings year, you tend to want to do tax-free or Roth contributions. But there are exceptions to that. Okay? The primary one being if you're a super saver and you're going to be in a higher bracket in retirement than you are now.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.